on the Daily Drive. Property Fast Track with Charles Tarbey. Thanks to Century 21. Smarter, bolder, faster. Go to century21.com.au.
Nick Bennett and Kayley Harris tonight, joined by Charles Tarbey. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Nick. Kayley.
How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Good weekend?
Yeah, very good weekend. Absolute stunning weather, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly
Stunning
was.
weather, yes. So I hope it's the same this weekend.
Gotta love spring. Plenty coming up today. Tom Panos, who is on Sky News later tonight with you. He's a legendary auctioneer. Will
Certainly
take us
is.
through some of the numbers over the weekend. And we'll also take a look at what it means to renovate your kitchen and bathroom. Is it worth the extra coin? Do we get it back on resale?
It's always a good point, and we're going to chat to Sarah Banachak as well up in Century 21. Brisbane City, because I want to ask you some questions about the apartment sales because we've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
So we'll get it right from the ground, right from the ground, the full story.
And 13 12 83 is the number tonight. If you'd like to speak to Charles Tarbey, who has about 400 years' experience now. It just increases, doesn't it? It's at least 40 years, Charles.
Every
has
year,
been in the game.
every show it increases.
That's
45 years, 45 years this year, yes.
45 years.
Yes.
If you add GST, it's like 49.5
It
or
is.
thereabouts. 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey here tonight. He is a wealth of wisdom. If you want to pick his brains about real estate, give him a buzz. Or you could message us if you want to be kind of quiet about it at talkinglifestyle.com.au.
And to kick us off, Charles, there's been reports that the sports car sales have slumped. And traditionally, this is like the canary in the coal mine. Experts worry a slump in luxury car sales means that the economy is on the way down as well, and in particular house prices. And Australian luxury car sales have screeched to their biggest annual decline in more than 5 years. That's according to CommSec Chief Economist Craig James. Have you seen this as
You
well?
having a giggle?
Yes,
he's having a giggle.
I'm having a giggle because I've been caught in it myself. You know, the market, everything starts to move along and you want to reward yourself, and it changes so quickly. It is almost as though everything stops overnight in some instances. And it's true to say, because you see real estate practitioners particularly, you see them posting on Facebook, what colour car should I get, and all sorts of different things. And I do think that when you look at the equity markets, they're very well connected, or very strongly connected to luxury car sales as well.
Yeah.
And when that starts to change, not only do the car sales start to change, but certain top-end locations start to change very quickly too in pricing.
Right, so we see less movement when it comes to luxury cars, maybe luxury real estate pursuits, holiday houses, that sort of thing. What other indicators are out there, Charles, that you've observed over the years?
Yeah, you start to notice that when things are changing for certain people, when the discretionary spending, such as cars and holiday homes, start to come on the market. That's when you notice that the bonuses that people were expecting to get, they don't get, or they're flagged that they're not going to get. And a lot of people that I know, and certainly in top jobs, buy a beautiful big home for themselves, and the next thing they buy is either a boat or a holiday home. And it's always fascinated me that the last thing I would buy is a big home for myself. The first thing I would buy is a small home for myself, and then a number of investments, and I'd sort of work it for a little while before I got a larger home. But a lot of people seem to go the other way around. And you notice the change when the holiday home market starts to flourish, when there's an abundance of property for sale in that
and are we seeing that now?
You're starting to see it, yes. You're starting to see it in certain areas. Certainly, that's already happened in Perth. Perth was one of the first areas. And some of the coastal areas where the canal homes are and so on, they were really badly hit because a lot of people that bought those were mining people, a lot of money coming through, fishermen from up the north-west of the state of Perth.
Yeah.
A lot of money would pour into these homes because you see a lot of them on the waterfront that were vacant. Over night time, you look down, you see a lot of lights, a lot of houses without lights.
Yeah.
So those are the first ones that really start to kick, and they did. Perth has suffered greater than anywhere else because of this, so it's very noticeable there.
Do you look at other things when it comes to consumer confidence to see what the real estate market's going to do? Things, for example, like unemployment figures, I guess consumer spending, interest rates. We've got another announcement coming next week from the RBA.
Yeah, and I think that's the main one, Kayley, is that interest rate factor. If that starts to nudge up a little bit, and that's predicted it will, and I dare say it, the only reason it hasn't is it's about the Australian economy, not the real estate market. And right now the interest rates need to be where they are. But when they start to nudge up, that's really when you'll see the impact. You'll see that pressure really coming on.
Is the number of cranes in the sky on building sites a good indicator?
Always a great indicator of activity, certainly. There's a few cranes that have been up in lots of capital cities in Australia, and the one that's probably still the most would be your Melbourne market. There's still a lot of activity going on there. And then you start to see places being sort of boarded up. In essence, some developments, they stop work, they put fences around them, they leave them idle because there's nothing they can do with them right now. And I've seen quite a few of those. Actually, I saw one of those when I was in Vegas during the GFC. There was this massive, massive building, casino, apartments and so on, and you go past it now and it's probably about 50 stories high. I might be exaggerating there, but it's a substantial building, and it's got to be knocked down, because it's been sitting there for so long.
Wow.
That the concrete and everything and the metal is all rusted, things have gone home. So this massive complex now has to be just demolished. It's for sale. First thing you've got to do is demolish the place when you buy it.
Property Fast Track tonight, 13 12 83. Charles Tarbey is here. Now, they reckon that kitchens and bathrooms sell houses. I think I do agree with that. But let's explore it more. It does make sense. Bedrooms and living rooms are a lot about furniture, which is kind of easy for you to personalise, but kitchens and bathrooms are a bit more complex than that. The kitchen especially, it's the beating heart of your home. It's where the family hangs out, socialises, breaks bread, you put the tea on, you make yourself a coffee, which is why you shouldn't skimp when it comes to putting in a new kitchen. If you got a big budget, that's great. But if you're kind of, trying to make ends meet and stretch the dollar further, how do you do that? Cherel Millist is a kitchen and bathroom specialist. Her company's called Brilliant Design Concepts. G'day, Cherel.
Hi, it's Nick. How are you?
Going well, thank you. Why is it a mistake to do a kitchen on the cheap?
Well, I suppose everybody's got a budget, and so you've got to really think about your budget. But kitchens and bathrooms these days are big ticket items, so you have to really sit down and think about how you're going to spend your dollar value into making it part of your lifestyle.
What's a fair price to be paying for a brand new kitchen? I mean, not absolute luxury up end. I mean, just to have it refurbished into something reasonably modern. What would you be looking at, Cherel?
Well, a standard kitchen would range from about $32,000 to $45,000. But upon saying that, most kitchen renovations don't just pull out old kitchens and replace them, the cupboards and the appliances. They're actually, people are thinking about building a kitchen around their lifestyle, because Australians just love to entertain. Indoor and outdoor kitchens are really common things now.
Well, Cherel, Charles here. I noticed when I was selling real estate, kitchens, bathrooms are always a very important feature, but they can age quickly. So, and you get new designs coming through. From your point of view, it's more likely to break or decay or go out of style. So, how long should a kitchen last?
Well, they say that the average homeowner changes their kitchen every 16 years. I don't know if that's the case in Australia, but that's apparently the average. Really, I think that a good investment is to work with a professional to design your kitchen. The reason being is that good design never goes out of fashion. So a professional will sit down with you and design it within the design and architecture of the house that you're living in. And then, and it's all about functionality as well. Ergonomics and easy access is how kitchens are built today.
Here's a question, I reckon, for both you and Charles, Cherel. If you spend, say, $40,000 on a new kitchen, how much would I expect to get back on top of that when I sold the property? I mean, is there a percentage, a rule of thumbs that you work towards? Do you spend 40 and get 50% back on top of that, or how do you kind of work?
I don't think it's, a lot of people speculate how much you should actually spend on a kitchen. But I think the value of the house, especially in Sydney with prices, $1 million plus, that I think it's more the value comes in the design and the functionality of the kitchen. And if you've got a large family home, then you would build a kitchen that would represent that. I mean, families these days have more than one dishwasher because of their lifestyle. And
Really?
It's all about, yeah, Yeah,
Wow.
That's you, Nick,
they're
the
unpacking
dishwasher.
one and filling,
Yeah.
filling up the next.
I've got an electric one, and then there's
Really?
me.
Yeah, definitely. And so really, and that's what it's all about these days, rather than, how much would it cost.
Yeah.
It's more about finding out how you can best spend your budget into making it the most functional and ergonomic kitchen that you can.
I can tell you from a sales point of view, Cherel, that it's more so the opportunity to get a home sold a lot quicker if it presents better. A great kitchen always does help sell. Sometimes it doesn't add much value, but it certainly does add speed and presentation, presentation and speed to a transaction.
I agree.
Let's talk about bathrooms.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned good design is vital with a kitchen. The furnishings might date, but good design doesn't. Does that apply to bathrooms too?
Absolutely. And the bathrooms are much smaller space usually than kitchens. And so people like to cram a lot of things into it. So it's all about finding how things fit together, and especially in bathrooms. Storage, you have to create storage. I put a lot of mirror cabinets into walls, and really a professional can sit down with you and create space that you never even thought would exist.
What do you say to folks who want to put a spa in?
I don't know if spas in bathrooms are that popular anymore. They're usually more as a extension of the outdoor area. So I think that's sort of, people aren't using as many spas and more soaking baths rather than spas, I'd say.
Bit Hollywood Hills 1970 shag pile carpets. Yeah, look, I'm stuck in the past.
You're going back to my first house with the painted on wallpaper now.
Well, wallpaper's all back in fashion.
Yeah,
so
there you go,
that's
Kayley. We talked about that.
Yeah, we
too.
did. I'm finding that hard to
Yes,
believe
I
because they're
know,
flat
I
out
know.
trying to buy wallpaper from anywhere.
No, I'll stay with the painted wallpaper. I can get the pattern going there. Just don't use it while I've had a few red wines. I'll be okay.
Cheryl, are you seeing a lot of people coming through now wanting to do a kitchen and bathroom on a budget?
No, I think people are looking past that now. I believe that people realise how important kitchens and bathrooms are, and if you were going to invest money into your house, that would be the first things I'd think about, and because all the rest can be, paint and small changes. But if somebody walks into a house and it talks their lifestyle, like a big open plan kitchen and the indoor-outdoor freedom of just walking in and out is just what that's their dream.
Cherel Millist, thank you so much. We can get your brilliance at Brilliant Design Concepts. You got a website?
Yes, www.brilliantdesignconcepts.com.au.
Great. Thanks for your time tonight on Property Fast Track, 13 12 83. Have you say to win 10K. Patrick, what's your vibe on the value of kitchens and bathrooms?
Yeah, my point I'm trying to make, Charles, is that because in Sydney, you know this very well, that most of the real estate sells well above reserve. So if you're going to try and put a figure on a bathroom or a kitchen, it does add the value, but you cannot put a value on getting retrieval of that money.
No, it's very hard to do that with renovations. We've found that over the years. And
because I've got no idea when a property sells way above reserve. I've seen properties 100,000, 200,000 above reserve. Now, you've got to then say, well, what part of that is the kitchen or the bathroom?
And you know what, Patrick, sometimes you think afterwards, you think maybe I shouldn't have spent the money on the kitchen and bathroom because I would have got that much extra anyway.
Charles, that's a really good point. I was going to make it, but I'm glad you made it. Because you got to think about, is it worth that sort of money? Because you might think you got recouped it, but the value of the property is well reserved anyway.
Yeah, there comes a time when we look at refurb and renovate, Patrick, and I think that time hasn't quite arrived in certain markets, but it is arriving.
Good on you, Patrick.
Thanks,
you for
Patrick.
your call. 13 12 83. Have your say to win 10K. And after the break, we're going to come back and go around the grounds with Sarah Banachak at Century 21 Brisbane.
Talking lifestyle, we're talking about it.
Plenty on tonight. We're going to talk technology in the next hour with Trevor Long on 13 12 83. And then if you're in the business for a job, then Matt Takaki's here following Trevor. He can help you out if you would like to land yourself a new role. Right now, Property Fast Track, Kayley and Nick and Charles Tarbey.
Yeah, let's get a local area real estate snapshot. Time to go around the grounds thanks to Century 21's extensive national network of real estate agents. And joining us tonight, Sarah Banachak. She's from Century 21 Brisbane City.
G'day, Sarah. Charles, how are you doing tonight?
Good, Charles. How
That's
are you?
great. I'm glad you joined us. Sarah's a long practicing real estate agent in mostly around the inner city of Brisbane, and she works out of corporate office with her team. And I wanted to speak to her tonight because the Brisbane property market has got a spotlight on it, that it's moving, it's growing, but there's certain areas of the marketplace, going back to units, that people are concerned about. So I thought we'd ask you, Sarah, because you're the one that knows what's going on. Tell us a little bit about the apartment sales and what's happening in the Brisbane market from your perspective.
Okay, well, look, I mean, obviously there's great buying in the second-hand unit market up here in Brisbane. I think we've been blasted by the banks and the media. So we've actually had buyer inquiry very low, but that means there's some great buying opportunities. Like, as I said to you earlier, Charles, I've just sold one in Kelvin Grove that bought in 2006 for $520, and we got it under contract to around that sort of 442.
Wow, so that's a significant drop for somebody. When you think about that pricing, though, don't you think that the 500 plus was probably a little too high, or more enthusiastic buyers than they should have been? It's
just Kelvin Grove's had a massive boom on apartment builds, and so when that initially was purchased in 2006, it would have had fantastic city views, but now another complex has gone in front of it.
Oh, gosh.
But it's been a great buy because it's been a first-time buyer that's bought it, and she's intending to live in there.
That opens up something, doesn't it? That opens up a whole new, opens up a whole new level of opportunity.
Is that a pretty common story across the Brisbane second-hand unit scape, Sarah?
It can be in certain pockets. Like, you've really got to search around to find those really good deals. I mean, we're based in Spring Hill, and we are one of the areas that has never been blasted by the spruikers to actually say this is a great place to live. And it's probably one of the most underrated areas in Brisbane. You literally, 500 metres, you can be in the middle of our sort of busy shopping centres. And I've got a little one that I just can't believe hasn't sold. I've got a 2-bed, 1-bath with a car space, $375.
What would I get as a rental on that per week?
Yep. $425 a week.
$425 for $375 investment. So I'm assuming lots of investors are coming in as well.
Well, they're everybody's sitting on their hands. They really they're not looking at our marketplace because we've just been blasted by the media. And like the deals that are around, there's some really good buying.
When you look at what you're saying with regards to the media and Brisbane, but the Brisbane apartment complex has been the focus for quite some time because there's been a bit of an oversupply compared to the housing side.
New stock. So when you're looking at new stock, it's a completely different ball game. We've obviously had a lot of investors come both internationally and locally buying in that. So if you actually sort of say, well, we're not going to focus that, look at what we've got available second-hand. And we've got some, as I said, locations that are just absolutely fantastic. So if you're, if you're savvy, that's the kind of stock that you're going to be looking for.
We sold my grandmother's house in Auchenflower, Sarah, in 1979 for $7,000.
I was going to say you'd be absolutely kicking yourself.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, Kayley, someone ripped you off.
Seemed like a lot of money at the time.
Look. I mean, as I said to you, that we've got two speed basically. Our house prices are just on the up and up, especially in the inner city areas. And we're just sort of seeing their holding value, and a lot of people are buying them because they can see that those prices going up in the proximity to our city. You can still get something under $1 million and still walking down distance into the CBD. So
good insights.
That's incredible. Really, when you look at, say, the Sydney market, you just wouldn't get that.
Yeah, look, sounds like there's some pretty decent buying to be had in Brisbane. Sarah Banachak from Century 21 Brisbane City, the heart of things. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Property Fast Track, it is 13 12 83. Have your say to win 10K. Monday nights, we always check in with the guru himself, the king of the auctions, Tom Panos. G'day, mate. How you going?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening, Tom. Interesting week for auctions. Interesting week in Sydney. Jumped up a little compared to what it did last week. So what happened for you out there?
Yeah, so, Charles, I had a massive day. I mean, it started at 9. I'm just having a look at it. I think my final result was 10 out of 14, which is in line with the CoreLogic RP data. It surprised me. I actually thought to myself, the fact that we had a total of, I think over 1,000.
Yeah, there was 1,014 auctions in Sydney that recorded.
Okay,
That's the same number as 10 from 14.
It was. There you go. 10 from 14, 1,014. Tom, you're right on the number. Good one, Nick. Good pickup.
Okay, very, very good, Nick.
What about Melbourne, mate? What's going on down in Melbourne? Are sellers scrambling to get in before the AFL Grand Final this weekend?
They are. I mean, there was a massive amount. I think there was nearly 1,400, or Charles will tell you exactly.
1,359, Tom.
Okay.
Auctions went, yep.
So they're massive. I've got to tell you what was interesting during the week. I've had 2 or 3 real estate clients ring me up. They're all struggling with these new underquoting laws there that came in on the 1st of May, right?
Yeah.
And what they're struggling with, how to actually get people to come to auctions. There's been a few cases, there have been major action taken against clients, but the strength of that market meant that they continued to have a clearance rate of just under 75% there. So it's super strong. The real estate agents have got a nice, easy week of very few open point inspections and very few auctions where they can watch. Who is it? It's Adelaide, isn't it? Adelaide versus
Richmond.
The Tigers, yeah, Adelaide and Richmond.
And that is being done at Adelaide Oval?
No, mate, that's at
that
the
was last
MCG.
weekend, I'm sorry. That was
That's at
last
the
weekend.
Mecca, the home.
I'm a bit slow, aren't I?
Home of the game.
No, I was only
Right.
just trying to give it a bit of a pump because we sponsor the big electronic banner down. It doesn't matter.
That's
Go on,
okay.
keep going.
I'd like to see it, though, in Adelaide. That would be good.
Yeah.
And I'm sure lots of Adelaideans would too, mate, but I don't reckon that's going to happen over someone's dead body.
Tom, are you expecting this weekend, given the NRL Grand Final and the AFL Grand Final, Monday's a public holiday as well, are you expecting a big weekend or a quiet weekend?
Super quiet, Kayley, super quiet. There'll be very few auctions in Sydney. There'll be even less so in Melbourne. AFL in Melbourne has a bigger impact on the real estate market than the NRL has in Sydney. So, but regardless, I'm actually choosing not to work this one of the few Saturdays I won't work. I'm not going to be working. I won't be doing auctions. So this Saturday is not going to tell us too much about the marketplace. But, look, I'm going to say it, and I'll keep saying it. 10 out of 14 looks all right, but what you didn't see is that I was begging buyers to pay more, and I was asking vendors to reduce their prices. And that's something that the clearance rate doesn't show. The fact is how much had to go in to try and put a deal together, and that wasn't happening a few months ago.
So, Tom, anecdotally, look, I respect the fact it's hard to put a number on it, but let's say compared to 3 months ago,
Yeah.
what do you think the market's come off by, roughly, as a percentage?
10%.
10%. Okay, interesting.
And some houses are totally unaffected that have got 5 stars against them, that have got everything going for them. There are some properties, particularly units, where they're having no interest, and I could say it might even be more than 10%. But I would, on average say that, properties that I thought we should have sold for 1.3, are getting, 1,150,000 to 1.2.
Okay. Hey, just finally, back to Victoria. You mentioned these underquoting laws. I was chatting to a Victorian last week, and they presented me with a scenario that I've never heard of before. Yeah. There's an agency in Melbourne doing this. It's basically, by the sounds of it, like a silent auction. So this couple's interested in buying a home. It's only 3 years old.
Yeah.
And they've been asked to bid on it quietly, or put an offer in, I should say. Put an offer in. But for the privilege of doing that, the agency's charging them a $1,000 refundable deposit. And they're one of 4 others doing the same thing. Have you ever heard of that?
Look, that one specifically I haven't heard, but that is sounding to me like what they're saying is it's a silent auction. You won't see who you're actually up against. and if you're unsuccessful, do they get their $1,000 back if they're unsuccessful?
Yes.
They do. Okay.
That's a local firm here in Sydney that's offering that. They're actually
This is
advertised.
the Melbourne Mobs.
No, there's one here in Sydney.
one doing it too?
Harris Partners in Balmain. They've been around a long time. Good operators, very strong operators, and they advertise with you guys. That's how I know. The silent auction.
Okay.
Right.
New to me, but interesting. Okay.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, what it does is it makes you have to put your best offer in because you don't get a second chance at it, because then they'll come back and say, look, you missed out. Someone came in higher. So there is psychology to it.
Tom, just quickly, the interesting stat this week is that Melbourne was 73.9% clearance rates with more auctions than Sydney. So the Melbourne market is still booming along.
Yeah, and you said it a few years ago, Charles. You said, Tom, don't go spend your money at the Porsche McCann dealer in Alexandria. Go buy yourself a property in Melbourne. But what did I do? I've got a car that's gone down in value while I'm looking at the...
But who's got the windswept hair? Thanks, Tom Panos, tonight. Into hair and makeup. We'll sort you out. Sky
Thank
News
you, Tom.
tonight with Charles Tarbey, who's back next week. Charles, thank you for your time
Thank you very
tonight.
much. Thanks, Kayley.